words. Hello, this is Good This is Good the Black Jester. Black Jester Matters. Not episode 420, but the 420 episode. Hello. This is a obligatory 420 episode by any libertarian. I'm not sure I'll probably actually talk about it very much. Aside from the funny thing is it kind of put medical on the wayside for even asked what it was about. It's kind of weird. It's less bullshitty, but it's weird. I mean, I don't buy the medical thing. Of course, I barely buy aspirin, but it's hurts enough from using aspirin. Yeah, so that is happening in Vancouver. They got this whole thing. The problem is that libertarians seem to back it a bit, but they don't understand that, one, they're engaging in force by forcing it on a neighborhood, an area, and park, and so on. Basically, they don't have a permit, so the land isn't set up for or set aside for it, which means that the regular individual gets to use it to walk through and stuff, which means that they instigate force against these individuals who would otherwise walk through that part of the park. And it's also a public park, and so why wouldn't they get a private place? Why wouldn't they? I mean, it's a festival. It's not the protest is at Parliament. They could have gone to City Hall end too. That's where the protest is. It's where government is. You're not going to go and complain to where government is. You're not protesting. You're just sitting around at the beach. There's so much bullshit with that. I mean, that's what I could stand. That was always a problem with that issue. There's so much bullshit on both sides. The side I want to be on is also full of bullshit. They won't bother with decent arguments. They just think, well, I should be expected to be understood. You expect the right winger to understand right away. That's just ridiculous. You expect the left winger to not want to use it as some sort of mind control plan, because that's really why leftists really want it, because they see it as something that's hypnotic, that they can use to make people suggestible and do their bidding. If they realize that it's not as weaponizable as they used to be before, we'll be back to square one. As it is, they already are using it to manipulate people. I mean, right now, lots of people are doing it illegally because it was better when there were less laws than it was when there were more laws, and people keep their old guy because their old guy doesn't work on the new laws. There's another problem. It's the fact that government is a bullshitter under these board regimes, blue, orange, red, and green. That's the way it is. And they keep on believing the same people all the time, each time. That's really the biggest problem with government, is that people believe the same stories again and again and again from the same people again and again and again. They won't try anybody of a new avant-garde way, like a libertarian, because, well, they don't want to bother, or some people just don't go to vote. Largely, you think, people who would vote libertarian don't go to vote because they're not told there's someone to vote they could vote for. They're not allowed to come to that decision. And they're shamed for it if they do it. That's terrible, you know. It's like, I mean, who is anyone to say, we're splitting the votes? It doesn't belong, the votes don't belong to you. This is right. I'm trying to keep notes. Apparently they're blaming feminism stuff on, and cultural wars and stuff like that, on the fact that men aren't porking a lot. And, you know, maybe men aren't bragging about it as much. Maybe it's government that's really the problem. It's not women versus men, not men versus women. Maybe it's government versus them. And they're told things like, women are told that tax cuts are sexist, and a man likes a tax cut, and she says he's sexist, and stuff like that. It still goes to government. And government's a lying bastard. But women love him, and they don't understand why they love him. He's a real bad guy, but they think if they can change him. But they don't want him to completely stop. And hell, he doesn't know from yes anyway. No from yes anyway. So, what's the difference? Yeah. See, another interesting thing about tax cuts is like people make the misnomer that tax cuts, tax rebates, and are the same thing. Tax credits are the same thing. Tax credits and rebates are a reason to hire government employees. That's all they are. Tax cuts mean you don't take more money. You take less money. So that means you don't hire someone to the civil service to cut someone a rebate check. You just don't take that money. And that's it. And it's usually across the board and stuff. It's not like that. I mean, rich people don't pay taxes anyway because they tax the individual, they don't tax the companies the same way. The companies will write things off when CEOs and stuff will have the company buy a car they can use and buy an apartment they can use and stuff like that. All that's under the umbrella of an incorporated body. Now, if you took the tax burden off the individual and put them onto the corporation, even on the level of tithe on sales of goods and services, and tariffs and excise on foreign goods from only collective entities like business and incorporated for profit, not for profit. You know, because at that point it's fair. There's still a matter of taxation with representation, because the fact is that the existence of an income tax will always exist, therefore they will always have to fight it, and that's why they should always have representation, so they can fight it and make sure it doesn't happen again if this new idea of mine actually takes hold anywhere. That's that in a bit of a nutshell. I've been saying that a long time, of course. I had a variation of it for the mayoral run. That was more of a open permit system. The federal government doesn't need to do any of what it does, really, aside from print the money and print the money through a mint, not a central bank. Bank of Canada has to close. The Fed should close. It's not the Mint. Alexander Hamilton worked for the Mint. He didn't work for the Fed. That's a big difference. Didn't work for him. He ran it. The Fed was a big sleight of hand, and it undermined the Mint completely. So it's not really about fiat cash as much as it's about a sort of central bank which governs interest rates rather than the private sector competition machine and things of that nature. Hell, if I ran one myself, it'd probably be easier without like permits and endless presumptions of guilt. I only charge like a one-time thing on each purchase. I mean, why would I go with regular interest when I didn't have to? But now you do kind of have to. It's sort of a governing body. It goes to the bank thing and the SEC, and people get kicked off their accounts and stuff because of opinions and stuff, but largely because of the FEC. The FEC, and I think also because they don't have debts. I think some of these people are anti-debt types. Maybe Mike Rose next, I don't know. But it's possible that the guy from Gab and stuff like that, they don't have debts, and therefore the banks don't have any reason to worry about kicking them off. But largely I think it's the SEC which is a corporation going through a government body in order to trade for extra cash. Public company, usually companies like Facebook and stuff turn tail when they go public, and that's how that's it's unfortunate, but that's the way it seems to go. Twitter goes public, it starts censoring people ad nauseum. Google and its searches and stuff like that, it's a public company. All roads lead to the stock market. All roads lead to the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission. And let's see, there's yeah, that's how it sort of unravels my mind anyway. It's unfortunate, very unfortunate. There might be something else, who knows? But it seems the most reasonable thing to guess. It's possible some people flag themselves too, unless they get themselves cut off. I wouldn't say conflate them with everybody, but there's some people who probably flag themselves, get themselves banned, and make a big scuffle out of it, and benefit from it that way. I have some suspicions about that. I don't want to burst anyone's bubble by accident by being wrong, but so I won't share the exact suspicions. But I mean, it's enough as a vague sort of label for people to maybe investigate it more detailed fashion blindly. I mean, I could just be an old-fashioned guy thinking, well, these people didn't pay the dues that everyone else did in the old ways and stuff like that. It's, you know, that happens. People like that too. But, you know, PlayStation 5 was announced. Sadly, it wasn't a Vita 2. It should have been a Vita 2. That would have been much smarter. Go for some of that Switch market and stuff like that. Foolish for them. They're alienating a huge base, huge part of their support. And the people still want regular Vitas right now. It's largely for hacking reasons, but still, I mean, there's a huge interest level for that. And they decided to make it a legacy, which shows how out of touch they are. It's ridiculous. People hated them for that. I still, I think, hate them for that. They had a great email client on that thing, and Twitter. I think it was a bit of a better PC than a gaming machine on that, in many ways, anyway. It was certainly good browsing and stuff. Social media, email, POP email, in fact, which is really best because you don't get bothered endlessly with it. The notifications and stuff. Anyway, so there's a company that makes a cream that's telling you to go to a specific place to fact check it. That's suspicious, isn't it? You hear this ad, it says, it says good housekeeping. It says go to good housekeeping to fact check it. So you know whoever they tell you to go fact check with is the right ones to check out. I didn't mark down what the product was. I just thought it was really funny. I mean, imagine if I told you to go to my website to fact check this and that thing, or somebody, I paid someone to start a website and say, go to this place, or the magazine that's very favorable to me, I said, go to this place, or something. It's for, you know, so back to this broad thing. Women are having increased problems with getting laid, I guess. Is that the problem? Because I don't think they've ever had a problem with men actually having trouble getting laid. It's usually because it's probably a new thing if women can't get laid. Probably because men aren't actually as desperate as they used to be, actually. It's probably that. Or the statistics are full of shit. And it is really the fact that they, it could be that men aren't terribly eager to do it, because listen, their sperm lasts twice as long as any egg. And, just a single life, probably video games and stuff like that. You've got enough student loans, especially good. And you just have to do as well as you can to scrape by, really. And you don't have to worry about family or anything like that. It won't get you down. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's probably a great thing when they do try to prove to you that they're worthy of raising your kid, and they are there saying that they will obey you. And don't get me wrong, some guys want to do the obeying and take it up the ass, and that's just disgusting. I mean, really. Taking up pegging, I mean, really, find a guy to plug your ass with. At least it's fleshy. Come on. Ugh. I mean, I've got a cock. It's a real cock. And granted, I won't just do any dude. And I'm probably going to be too crazy about it anyway, since I'm getting older, and you kind of have to start tightening things up to the female side of things when you're bi, because at least until you got a kid and stuff. I got a very complicated type of agreement for women. We need a world that respects agreements too. I mean, right to contract and stuff like that, because relationships are too complicated for a lot of these classic situations, and people probably have to set up their vows and just to sign a person-to-person contract. Forget wedding licenses and stuff. There's no need for that. You should just have a straightforward code. Like both of you agreed. That's that. That's what I would do. Just have them sign off on my code, which is lots of well, I'm not going to be told what to do. No way in hell. And spare the cock, spoil the lady. I'll do what I damn well please, and they'll do what I damn well please. That's the way I am. I'm a toxic man, and that's not a joke. I don't mind being a toxic man. I don't think there's anything wrong with being a toxic man. I don't think it was toxic once. I think it was just being a man. What's wrong with just being a fucking man? You know, someone pins me down and tries to virtue signaling me or hassle me about a point of view or a joke I told on. Fuck you. You're not telling me what to do. I'll do what I do. I know what's right. If you know what's right, you'll obey or go find somebody else to emasculate. That's the way it goes. I mean, I don't need the relationship that much. My sperm will age gently. And, Christ, it's harder for me anyway to really get interested, in the sense that I got hyperspadias, and that was a real massive mindfuck when you're growing up, and I had the hard way to figure out what I was into. That was not easy. That was difficult. And even then, it was very hard to admit. I mean, can you imagine realizing you're bisexual? It's just the fact that, culturally speaking, I mean, when the straights are cool, gays aren't. So in some way, and when gays are, straights aren't. Straights are maligned and treated terribly right now. Just like out of this revenge thing, and now the other ones are revenge. You know, when you're bisexual, basically you're screwed in both ends. I guess especially got a bi chick with you, and the mousy ones in the middle. Anyway, I'll digress from that point. Yeah, it's gonna be, that is very hard. It's very difficult. And there's very little understanding. Straight guys understand it a lot better. Like, you know, there's old straight adage, I guess we sort of buy in a way, that a mouth is a mouth. So I think, you know, straight guys understand, hey, you get a blowjob any way you can, right? Straight guys will say stuff like that, but gay guys, no. They say, I don't want you to share with a woman. That's what they will do. You know, it's lesbians, they're not too keen on sharing stuff either, usually. Now, speak of my thing about domination and stuff like that. When you decide that this man is the one who tells you what to do, you are not being controlled by men, plural. And that was what feminism was about. It was like libertarianism. No one wanted men, plural, like the government, controlling. That was what it was about. It wasn't about the second wave nonsense and all that other shit. You know, it's like, it wasn't like that. It was about stopping men, and I guess now men and women, because they're both in government now, plural, from controlling you. It didn't mean you didn't have a husband saying this and that. It just meant you had you didn't have a government telling you or your husband what to do. You didn't have a mass ego. You didn't have an ego mass like a feminist organization telling you what to do. That was the men thing. It came out when men had a lot of the power on the surface. I mean, largely, I think, just like now, the politicians were whipped like Trudeau. That little spineless wimp goes around acting like he thinks could be recognized as a leader, and everyone in the world must know this guy is getting smacked around by that woman. I mean, he is a total bitch. Allegedly. I mean, come on. Really? We're supposed to believe this guy has his balls outside her purse? I don't believe it for a second. And that's the problem. No one buys the fact he's the man. And that's the problem. They say Notley was a problem. She was a woman. That was victim shaming. That's victimization. That's victimization culture. That's victimology, victimism. Notley was despised because she sucked. But what they really despise is when a whipped male, especially an obviously whipped male, is taking the mantle of leading them. And it goes down to the whole thing. Men controlling men, men controlling women, stuff like that. Women controlling men, women controlling women. The individual being controlled by a mass number of people. And it's like that. That's how. That's really, that's problematic. I hope you can hear this. I probably won't actually be listening to it before it's uploaded. But you can always comment and like or dislike. I'm not. You say what you want. Thumb it down, I thumb it up. Just in case I lose my mind and decide to get old echo chambery, use dissenter on Gab. It's a brilliant thing. You know, it's not full of Nazis, and you'll find that as you warm up. And even the white supremacists are a lot cuddlier than the leftists on Twitter that berate these people, which is really weird. And I don't care for white supremacy, you know, that crap. That's just, no, I'm a Catholic. That's not good for my sort of background. I mean, I'm just a dirty papist to them. I'm no better than a dirty Jew and all that other stuff. Actually, I think they think of us as dirty Jews in a way because of Martin Luther's ramblings. Yeah, I went there. Yeah, apparently there's this Christian reconciliation nonsense. It is nonsense because some Jesuits going around conning Protestants out there into becoming slightly Catholic. The Jesuits are basically hunters. They hunt after Protestants. And they're vile, vicious indoctrinators, and they're vile and vicious colonization tools. They're horrifying. They're designed as some sort of theocratic version of the Catholic Church in France, which was adopted by Habsburgs, of course, when they were in charge, and which brought them down to Spain and the Spanish Inquisition and things of that nature. This was the official religion. The Jesuits were the official religion up to the Reign of Terror, and to some Bonaparte, to some degree, used such a useful bunch of fellows too. in a less obvious way, because they still had a sort of attitude about religion and stuff, but they were still allowed to do their thing. And the only people who got really oppressed by the Reign of Terror, I'm not saying the Reign of Terror was good, a bunch of bad socialist bastards, and Napoleon's deal afterwards, at least he was good to his soldiers, I guess. He was smart, he canned food. He did a lot for soldiering. He was quite the martial leader, that's for sure. But, I guess we would call him a regular Goebbels in a way. Oh, no, Goebbels, was the other one. Himmler? Was it Himmler that sent the yeah, Goering. They sent the airships at everybody. Kicked England's ass. Yeah, they think they won half the time, but it's a load of crap. They were taken down, and they were begging Americans for some of the used surplus machines. That's a real victory for you. Bloody hell. And the Americans got into the war, and they go, oh, thank God, thank God, thank God. But then after that, Americans never really took the mantle for winning those wars, because they were of a classic liberal history. And the idea was you can never win in a war. You can only survive, really, for what it's worth. It's more worth it to the future generations, but I won't crap on Lincoln's end of the. There's something important about that. Lincoln's end in the Civil War. That was that was James Buchanan's war. James Buchanan caused some ruckus when he sent marshals out to detain and arrest people's property, and this property was called a slave. And the marshals would bring them back to the park, and that offended the North, and the North demanded retribution, all this other stuff, and they were pissed off, and then eventually, I'm figuring the South had a lot of anger because Lincoln wasn't going to send them back from northern states and stuff like that. Let the free men be free and that sort of thing. And granted, I think Lincoln's approach on a national level was very stupid. They should have gone the Whig way to fight it state by state. It would have happened faster. After that whole thing, Douglas went to states and they were still having slavery. They weren't importing them, of course, because, I mean, back then, oh no, wait a minute, $10 wasn't worth $10 anymore like it was in the Constitution's founding. But it was true. Madison foresaw the end of slavery in the devising of the Constitution. He didn't say it would be immediate, but he saw it as an organic action. And the Whigs took this on. They were originally what the Federalist Party were, libertarian, classic liberals, and they were state rights people. And they wanted to fight state by state against slavery. And they figured that was the best method. And that's a largely misunderstood thing with the Whigs. The Democrats were very